Good morning. Welcome to Truth by Billie Beene, and thanks for hitting the like button, which helps my channel to grow. Today's date, February 10, 2025, time in Texas, about 9 a.m. So let's get into whether lower courts can limit a president's power. And so some of the things we'll cover today. Judges aren't allowed to control a president's power. And we have this. President Trump continues to pursue peace. And FEMA next. So that's going on. Some of my sources are God in the Bible, Patriot Subscriber, Free Tampa Press, Breitbart, Hal Turner, K News, Raw Story, Associated Press, Gateway Pundit. So we've had this recent activity in lower courts to limit President Trump's Doge group, who are going after the deep state embedded in the U.S. federal government. Now we have this from Associated Press. J.D. Vance and Elon Musk question whether a lower court can put a check on President Trump's executive power. We have this from Raw Story. J.D. Vance believes that President Trump can ignore lower courts' rulings against Doge, and I agree with that. And this is coming out. Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. Now, under our Constitution, we have three branches of government: executive, the president; legislative, that's the Congress; and the Supreme Court, and a few checks and balances. The executive, the president, can veto legislation. The legislative group, Congress, can confirm or reject a president's nominees. And the Supreme Court can overturn unconstitutional laws. Now, I have a Patriot Subscriber with a legal background who puts forth that the case Marbury versus Madison, that came out in the early 1800s, holds forth that it's only the Supreme Court that can hear any cases against a president, and that the Supreme Court only has original jurisdiction. Marbury versus Madison in 1801, early 1800s. An outgoing president in December had named some individuals as judges. Marbury was one of the individuals this outgoing president named as a judge. The new president came in January, and because Marbury had not been put in place by Congress, the new president said no to Marbury being a judge, because the new president wanted to name his own judge in that position. Marbury filed a lawsuit against Madison, who was a member of the new president's cabinet. Marbury versus Madison. This case eventually went all the way to the Supreme Court, where Chief Justice Marshall put forth information regarding the Constitution and the executive power of the president, and said this. So this case went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said they could not hear the case because they could only operate under the rules given to them by the Constitution. And the Constitution, Article 3, says that only the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction regarding the executive powers of a president. Because Marbury versus Madison had been filed in a lower court, it was unconstitutional. And because the Constitution said to the Supreme Court, you must have original jurisdiction, and in this case, Marbury versus Madison filed in a lower court, the Supreme Court did not have original jurisdiction. Therefore, the Supreme Court could not hear the case. And so these recent court rulings we've been hearing, limiting President Trump's use of Doge and giving Elon Musk access under President Trump's Doge team, those lower court rulings against President Trump are unconstitutional. Lower courts do not have legal power to impact the executive powers of a president. The president receives his executive powers under the Constitution, Article 3. So, President Trump can move on ahead and ignore these lower court rulings. Now, recently, I believe that was on Friday, we had the Attorney General of New York and 18 other Attorney Generals of 18 Democratic states filing a lawsuit against President Trump, again trying to limit his executive power. I submit those filings are unconstitutional according to this ruling given by the Supreme Court Chief Justice Marshall in the early 1800s. Only the Supreme Court can have original jurisdiction under the Constitution, and only the Supreme Court is the court wherein a group or an attorney may file a lawsuit that impacts or questions the executive power of the president. So these lower courts making these rulings against President Trump's executive power, trying to limit his use of Doge, are unconstitutional. So I'm totally confident President Trump's counselors, his attorneys, can come out and make a formal statement. And now we have this from Hal Turner. President Trump, under his Department of Interior Secretary Burgum and the USGS, has officially changed the name of the body of water from the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. So it's official. And we have this going on. So President Trump and Air Force One on Sunday, en route to the Super Bowl in New Orleans, President Trump was the first sitting president to attend a Super Bowl. And he made this statement: new tariffs, 25% tariffs, will be put on all imports into the U.S. of steel and aluminum. It's all about Make America Great Again. America should have its own steel and aluminum factories. So that's going on. And we have this. He also substantiated in that Air Force One trip on Sunday that yes, he has spoken with President Putin, but no other details were given as to the time or date of the phone call, nor what was said. We have this from Gateway Pundit. Under President Trump's Secretary of Homeland Security, former governor of South Dakota, Kristi Noem. She has taken, under Homeland Security comes FEMA, and under Kristi Noem, under President Trump, FEMA has resolved 80% of its cases in North Carolina in favor of American citizens, and also took new registrations, 2,600 American citizens in North Carolina signing up to receive services from FEMA. And we have this. Next on the DOGE list, one of the next hits will be FEMA. And we say, bring it. That's why we see these Dems trying to limit President Trump's power. And as I've put forth, lower courts trying to make decisions limiting a president's executive power are operating unconstitutionally. And we have this from NJ Truth. President Trump's U.S. military have seized 10,000 med beds that were hidden in deep state underground bunkers. And they're being used now to treat children who have been trafficked, and also the U.S. military who are actively engaged in battles underground under the U.S. and I believe possibly under other nations. One area they may be fighting underground is underneath Ukraine, where Fauci and the National Institute of Health, I believe some areas of DARPA had biolabs operating underneath Ukraine. So I believe the U.S. military may be involved in cleaning those out also. And we have, as well as the Russian military is also taking out these underground bunkers under Ukraine that were put in place by Fauci and certain parts of the U.S. government to develop genetically specific bioweapons. Yes, that's going on. And to traffic children and women. And we have this. For decades, these med beds have been hidden in deep underground bunkers that were classified. And now under President Trump, these underground bunkers are being taken over by the U.S. military, where they found 10,000 med beds. Some of the locations were in Arizona, Texas, and Florida. And the deep state tried to respond against the U.S. military, but all efforts have failed. In the near future, we are likely to have an emergency broadcast message, and at that point in time, med beds will be released to citizens. So that's going on. Way to go, President Trump. And we have this. President Trump's program to reduce the size of the federal government. We had 62,000 sign up to take the 8-month pay and benefits package and then resign from federal government. 62,000 signed up. President Trump has extended the deadline to sign up for the federal employee resignation package. He's extended that to February 10. Alina Habba, an attorney representing President Trump, is putting this forth, that the people and the court have to operate under the Constitution, and that moves against President Trump, his executive power must go to the Supreme Court. And as I've explained, that does appear to be accurate. Only the Supreme Court can impact or interpret the limits of an executive power of a president. A lower court may not impact the executive power of a president. A lower court trying to rule to limit the executive power of the president is operating unconstitutionally. We have this from Fox News. DOJ and the Health and Human Resources together are limiting, they're putting out $182 million of administrative costs associated with the National Institute of Health. Now, President Trump recently came out against a mainstream media group that had been trying to say that President Trump's DOJ group was taking money away from actual research. But that does not appear to be true. And we have this from Tampa Free Press. Yeah, the White House pushes back against what President Trump calls fake news. DOJ has simply limited $182 million of overhead administrative costs associated with the National Institute of Health, including taking away $170,000 that was to go to the Fauci Museum. That's been stopped. And we have medical professionals supporting President Trump's move to reduce administrative cost of NIH by $182 million. And we have a public statement made by a doctor from the University of California, Dr. Prasad, who said President Trump's move to limit administrative cost of NIH by $182 million provides more money that can go into science. So President Trump then came out against the Washington Post for making a false statement that his deduction was going to cut actual medical research benefits. No. President Trump says, no, that is not true. And we have medical professionals backing up President Trump. Now we have this from Hal Turner, that in Romania, so we see the world is taking note of how the U.S. is operating, and we see more and more. We see it in France, we see it in Germany, we see it in Romania, and in Georgia, a nation in Romania. So we see conservatives rising up to put in their choice. In this case, in Romania, Calin George Cashew has been elected by the people. The deep state in charge of the Romanian government would not allow George Cashew to take office. However, apparently, after President Trump was elected, the deep state and immediate impacts began to be made on the deep state in terms of their money by President Trump and the White Hats. Now, in Romania, they had an election, and the people voted in Calin Georgescu, a conservative individual. But the government of Romania, under the control of the deep state, would not let him take office. And we had in place Klaus Johannes in Romania, who had already served 2 5-year terms. And just a few months ago, we had a new person elected, but the current leader of Romania would not step down. Now, after the election of President Trump and the impact on the deep state, Klaus Johannes is now resigning, effective today, February 10, 2025. And we have this from James GRUNDVIG. The USA aid, so we've been hearing that U.S. aid, we know, was funding many liberal outlets and providing money for many things. They also provided money for cement mixers that went to Hamas, so Hamas could build tunnels underneath Israel and Gaza. $310 million. They also provided $38 million to Wuhan lab to develop the COVID virus. And they also sent $40 million to Ukraine's biolabs. So yeah, U.S. aid. Bye-bye. And we have this, President Trump's peace plans. So yes, recently we had 3 more hostages. So we're seeing President Trump's peace plans go forth in Gaza and in Ukraine. And in Gaza, there were 3 more hostages released. Now, it's my perception these 3 most recently released hostages, who President Trump said appeared emaciated, to me, they look like real hostages. My perception has been, during the course of these hostage releases by Hamas, going back even several years, that they did not appear to me to be real hostages being released for the television. There could have been real hostages being released, but the ones we saw on TV, to me, did not appear to be real hostages because they were all very well fed and very well groomed. And now 3 have been released who, to me, look like real hostages. President Trump condemned Hamas and stated that these 3 individuals appeared to be emaciated. I agree with that. So that's going on. But we see moves going forward under the cover of President Trump's peace plan with Gaza. And we have this in Ukraine. Yeah. So President Trump has designated under NATO UK is to assume the responsibility for the troops in the DMZ zone. And I've wondered about that. Now it comes forth that President Trump, ever the great negotiator, so in Ukraine, we'll have a DMZ zone, and we'll have the Novo Russia on one side, and a DMZ zone here in central Ukraine. And apparently this is the location of rare earth minerals that President Trump plans to take for America. Well, it's only right after the billions of dollars that have been wasted of America's money in Ukraine to pursue a deep state conflict. So that's going on. And now we have this with regard to Gaza. So this is coming out from Hal Turner, but I know Scott Ritter and other journalists have put forth the same information. So the IDF, that's the Israeli Defense Force, on October 7, 2023, when it's alleged Hamas attacked Israel, it's coming out by Yoav Gallant, and he was the former minister in the Israeli government. He's coming out that the Hannibal Directive was put in place. And what this Hannibal Directive is in Israeli military and government is, if Israel's being overrun, then kill them all. And on October 7, when it's alleged Hamas attacked Israel, the Hannibal Directive order was given to the IDF, who then proceeded to kill many Israeli citizens, including Israeli citizens and other citizens of other nations who were at a festival. 364 were killed from gunship helicopters over the festival by the Israeli Defense Force. With regard to this alleged group Hamas coming into Israel, there were many Israeli citizens who were trying to flee in cars, and they were all machine gunned, because some of the cars did include Hamas. So the Hannibal Directive was given, kill them all, and this resulted in the deaths of over 1,000 Israeli citizens. And it's being put forth now that hundreds were killed directly by the IDF. So that's going on. And now we have this. President Trump continues to pursue peace in the Middle East and in Ukraine. So we say, make America great again. It's good to pray for America, President Trump, and world peace. I love you, and I'll see you soon.